Uh, Welcome back, Stupid versus Spread. This is NFL Week 5 talk. So we're going to be recapping some of the storylines, not too many major ones from Week 4 of our NFL season. Go over kind of a week preview for this upcoming week, and then talk picks like we do every episode. So starting off, we'll get to the injuries later. I know like Tua was probably the biggest storyline from the week. Um, Getting his concussion in what was a nationally televised game. But as far as the games themselves, and we'll cover key injuries later, but the games themselves, I think the most standoutish moment for me was, two teams that are very good, the Ravens and the Jaguars, both blew 14 and 17-point leads. The Ravens going up 20-3 against the Bills, who obviously a very good team, and then the Jags going up 14 against the Eagles before almost not scoring another, score until I think the third or fourth quarter. Of those, what do you think was worse? Because I definitely have an opinion.
I think worse is the Jags because I think that Harbaugh gambled on the fourth down and
Mm-hmm.
goal. That didn't work out. I don't think it's necessarily the right call, but the one thing you can't have there is a pick and a touchback, and that's exactly what he got. I mean, if they go for it, they win that game. We're not even talking about it. But so I think I don't know that it's anyone's fault. It's just like the most unlikely scenario that could happen there, and Harbaugh, to his credit, definitely owned that decision. So that
No,
one
he
doesn't.
definitely. I mean, he definitely owned the decision. I'll say my piece in a second, but yeah.
Yeah. I think when you fumble the ball four times, I think that's probably worse. And as much as I continue to waffle on whether or not Zach Wilson is a guy, I think that it's fair to ask those questions sometimes about Trevor Lawrence. Because these are, and he's still growing as a NFL quarterback, but those are games that if you're seriously going to start competing in the way that Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow and some of the other second year quarterbacks we've seen really grow into their own in that year,
Mm-hmm.
have that, those games can't happen. So I think it's probably worse on the outlook for the Jaguars. Now they get a great bounce back spot this week against the NFL's worst team statistically. But I say that's worse just because I think they had a ton of momentum after a huge win coming into this week, and having a chance to measure up to a very, very good opponent, and they effectively took themselves out of the game after starting very, very well. So I think that's probably worse for the Jaguars. I think they'll grow from it, and I don't think it's a death sentence, but I do think it's a little bit alarming that they weren't able to really put together four quarters and see where they stood against the Eagles.
Yeah, I very much thought. I thought eventually everyone in the league kind of gets their comeuppance, at least ever since the Bills or the Dolphins had their, perfect season. So at least, you think, okay, there's at least one or two losses even for the best teams in the league. And I thought the Jags going up 14 points off of a great win the previous week, I was very much thinking like, oh, okay, the Jaguars are going to show the Eagles that they mean business. That maybe this is Trevor Lawrence's second week in a row of like his coming out and showing his stuff, and then they just kind of shit the bread after the defensive touchdown and the first score they had until very late in the game. The Eagles looked very dominant still, even after giving up 14 points. And I mean, I had the Jags, so I was a little disappointed. What was otherwise a great week really kind of got let down by the Jags and Ravens. Um, the Ravens, I don't think anyone discounted that the Bills could come back. I don't think that's why it's as bad when you look at, okay, it was only 20-10 at the half, right? But that was after a last, within 2 minute left in the half drive by the Bills. So that's one thing. And then I question Harbaugh's decision. You certainly know the Bills can score, and I don't think it was like, what was it, like 4th and 5 or 4th and 7? Like
Um,
you should kick that field goal. First of all, it's not like you have a bad kicker, right? You got Justin Tucker, who's
yeah, you
I
actually
don't
might have
think has
you
you
might have the
probably have
best
the best
kicker
kicker.
ever.
Yes,
So yeah, it's
statistically, I think you
not
do.
definitely not a bad kicker.
Yeah, so this you got to consider that's one that's like genuinely automatic, especially for that player who's kicking the ball. And I think what you do, I get what he was trying to do. He's trying to put pressure on the Bills, but I just don't agree with leaving points on the board that late behind because really what you're doing is you're saying, okay, by kicking the field goal, you're saying, okay, the Bills are probably going to drive down to the end zone, but trust our defense to stop them, make them kick a field goal to tie the game, or go for it, which they wouldn't do. When you go for it on fourth, when it's a tie game and you have the opportunity to kick that field goal, what you're saying is like, I don't trust my defense at all almost. Like I don't even trust that there's a slight chance they'll get a turnover or a slight chance they'll be able to hold them within a field goal. So I don't like that call in a tie game scenario like that. You kick the field goal, you get up and you put pressure on the other team because you never know. Like one big defensive play could end the game. But yeah, I was very shocked to see that. Two other teams who kind of underperformed this past couple weeks, I would say the Packers and the Rams. Rams coming off a loss on Monday night, as we all probably saw, and the Packers were 10-point favorites and went to overtime against. Um, you know, I don't I don't want to say that the Patriots are bad because I know there's a lot of fans, but you look at okay, Mac Jones is out. You got a second string quarterback. They go with their third string quarterback midway through the game. You're at Lambeau. This should have been one that the Packers really put this team away. And I get that it's a Bill Belichick coach team, but it really does feel like if you're going to be in that conversation of best team in the league, like this is one of the games you win. And right now, I think, granted, way too early to talk playoff picture, but if the season ended today, the Packers are the seventh seed in the wild card. Like that's how far back they are and how underperforming they have been. What if you were to see a Packers Rams win and you're in game? Who do you think kind of comes out on top? Because I think they're both underperforming. Or really, better way to phrase this, like, do you see one team improving and one not, or do you think they're both going to get back on the ball?
I was looking at so in the two games the Ravens have lost this season, they've been outscored in the second half 48-10.
Jesus,
Forty
that's
eight to
ridiculous.
ten.
That's bad.
Um, it's
That's very
really
bad.
bad. So between these two teams, I still believe that the Packers are eventually going to figure it out offensively because I feel so. The problem, it's a balance of which one of these is. Again, I go back to which one of these is easier to figure out, and to me, if Rodgers eventually develops connections with any of these receivers, they're back to where they were because their
Right.
defense is playing well. Now, the problem this weekend was that they let a New England team that is not, I would say, not what they normally are, run the ball pretty much at will in the second half
Mm-hmm.
of that game. And really, New England was able to take all of the pressure off of Bailey Zappi. Um, a rookie quarterback where a defensive coordinator's first goal should be to stack the box on Bill Belichick's team and force them to throw the ball. And when you multiply that by the fact that it's some amorphous combination of Joe Judge and Matt Patricia calling the plays, and you're still not able to stop them, is a little bit alarming for the Packers defense. I do say all that to say that I think that their problems are a little bit easier to figure out. I think the Rams will be okay, but the problem I see with the Rams right now is that their offense is almost entirely one dimensional, and that one dimension is Matt Stafford throwing the ball to Cooper Cup. That's
Yeah.
the entire dimension of the offense.
Mm-hmm.
So no matter how good their defense is, and they gave up yes, they lost by a lot to San Francisco, but that typically happens. And San Francisco busted three huge plays that really ran the score up in that game. So, and you add in the revenge factor, I kind of overlooked that, and that was my only loss this week, which we will get to later. But I think that unless unless the Rams can find a way to diversify the offense, especially throwing the ball, where because eventually, and I don't, he still gets his targets, gets his catches, so it hasn't affected them yet. But eventually, teams are going to take Cooper Cup completely out of the game. If there are ways to take Tyreek Hill completely out of football games, there is a way to take Cooper Cup completely out of a football game.
Right.
So, and I think it would be beautifully illustrated if they played their own defense. Because if you just had Jalen Ramsey shadow Cooper Cup all over the field, I don't know how the Rams offense would function, and they didn't to a large extent last night. Um,
No, not
so
at all. I mean, they looked absolutely atrocious
yeah,
yesterday. They scored
so
what, 9 total points,
yes, yeah, they scored 9. They lost 27-9.
24-9.
24-9. Um, so when you look at that, that feels I go back to it's not in Green Bay. It's not the system. We've seen it work before. It's Rodgers getting on the same page with his new receivers, which doesn't feel like as big a hurdle to clear as where is the other outlet for the football in this Rams offense. And I go back to the same thing with the Bucks, where now if Tom Brady's getting divorced, like who is his head in the game, and is the connection there between him and Byron Leftwich and the rest of the offense to get them out of the rut that they're currently in. They didn't have offensive problems against the the Chiefs. They just got dominated by Patrick Mahomes, which we'll get to. But um, so I think out of those NFC contenders, when you look at them and where they are, I still think the Packers are the easiest one to fix. It's just I keep saying that every week I come on this show and I say eventually the Packers are going to figure it out, and they never do. So they're making me look like a real bag of poop here. But I still believe that they are the easiest team to unfuck in this situation.
That's fair. I don't know if I agree with you. Something seems off with the Packers. I mean, granted, their defense is probably a little better than the Rams, because of injuries here and there. Um, I don't know. I think they're both underperforming. I don't know that I see either making great strides. I know that sounds weird, but
Yeah, I'm
you know
losing
that.
that fire with the Packers too. I don't know that that's the concern now as somebody who's backed the Packers is that I don't think the odds are that that epiphany that I'm talking about is not coming.
I mean, so in defense of scheduling, right? I'll kind of go on this. I think the Packers finished with a better record than the Rams. The Rams play a Dakless Cowboys this week, but their biggest games, which I think they'll struggle, they have the 49ers, then the Bucks, then the Cardinals, all back to back to back. They play the Saints, Chiefs, then they still finish up with the Raiders, the Packers, and the Chargers. Like that's a pretty brutal schedule. Whereas I think Green Bay has kind of a little easier path. They're already 3-1, but they play the Giants this week in London. Nevertheless, they should kind of come out on top. The week after they have Jets, then Commanders. Their hardest game in October is going to be the Bills at the end of the month, and then you're looking ahead: Cowboys, Titans, Eagles, but then they got the Bears, um, and the Lions to finish up. So it's not. It's still a difficult schedule, and it's any given Sunday. But I think Packers probably have a little easier path to the playoffs than the Rams. It wouldn't shock me if the Super Bowl winning Rams, maybe like unless Cup just absolutely lights it up and like is no question like absolute number one MVP vote from everybody. I question where this is coming from the Rams that they're going to drastically improve over these teams that they're playing because they have looked very very poor in the games that they have played in the past couple weeks, and I think it's concerning.
Yeah,
Um,
I I think the Rams are still tracking towards the playoffs just because I think the wheels are going to come off of Kyler Murray's especially small little red wagon.
yeah,
Um,
I think that's fair, especially given that the Rams beat them once and they have to play them again. You got to consider that's a tiebreaker right there, is head-to-head matchups, and
yeah,
if they beat the Cardinals again, they'll be 2-0 again.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say on those two teams, I think the Packers do lose one of these next three games. I don't know which one it's going to be, but if you look at the schedule and you say Giants, Jets, Commanders, they should win all three. I think one of them they find a way to lose, and I think that I mean, for me, hopefully that's the wake up call for the Packers offense. But I think one of these next three games.
I would wager that that's somehow the Commanders or the Jets. I don't.
Yeah, I see. That's my thing. Is like I think that they win this game uh, this week, but I think like maybe it's just sympathy toward both of us and our miserable franchises. But I think one of those games, the Packers are just going to absolutely sleepwalk through.
I can see that because they certainly haven't looked explosive in every single game, especially the first game of the season. I mean, we thought the Vikings were the hottest shit in the world, and that's not inherently true either.
Yeah.
So love to overreact every week. Mahomes, speaking of this upper echelon of teams that we always like to talk about, Mahomes looked great this weekend. Made some very Mahomes plays that everybody lost their mind to. One scramble where he, dodged about five guys, then threw the ball away as he should have been getting tackled for a touchdown. I don't have too many notes. I think Kansas City, very good team. I think Bills versus Kansas City it's looking like it's in the works for like another showdown. Maybe hopefully this time in the AFC Championship game instead of conference play. But yeah, I don't know if you had any input on Mahomes's I don't know expertise. I mean, he just looked really good.
Um. No, the only thing I'll say is that the Chiefs Super Bowl odds right now are plus 700, which feels like
There's value there.
yes, because I think that they're gonna like. There's no reason why they can't keep getting better, unless they just get screwed with injuries. But to me, it feels like it. They look. Mahomes is healthy. I'll say that too, and as
Mhm.
long as he stays that way, he's doing the things that we know Patrick Mahomes can do, and they're gonna lay another egg somewhere down the line. I should have stuck to my guns on Kansas City this week, just bouncing off that terrible loss, which we should have seen coming in the week prior against Indianapolis. But they'll lay another egg or two somewhere in the middle of the season. They may get beat by a team that pulls something completely out of their fourth point of contact. But um, I think that ultimately they are the team that they've been every year for the past 3 years, which is one of the four last teams remaining for the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and they seem to have really overcome the loss of Tyreek Hill, who obviously is a tremendous playmaker. But they seem to really do have like everything still in place. Although I'm sure they'd love to have him, but
Yeah, they would love to be more explosive, but I think they're so much more unpredictable, and that's the trade off is they don't need to they don't need to be able to hit the 70-yard deep ball because now, which speaking of which, I just remembered the catch that Tyreek Hill made from Teddy Bridgewater in the Thursday night game where he caught it, he bobbled it and caught it off his face mask, like
ridiculous.
absolutely insane. But they don't need to hit that 70-yard play because now you have no idea where the ball is going, and they just know that they can get first down after first down when they're humming, and you can't stop it. So they're a scary team. They look great, and I think that they're going to be in the AFC Championship game again.
It wouldn't shock me. A possible preview of that is October 16th. Not a primetime game, shockingly, but Bills Chiefs 3 o'clock, 3:30 in 2 weeks. Okay, moving on. So much like App State in college football this year, the Lions are quickly becoming must-watch television almost. So if you're a fan of explosive, uh, not I don't want to say plays because that kind of oversells what the Lions are, but the over has hit 4 times in 4 games in Lions games. The least amount of points that the Lions have put up in the past 4 games is 24 points. But they go into a shootout with the Seahawks this past week, losing 48-45. It does feel like should the Lions should have a better record than 1-3. It feels like, but they're so much fun to watch, and I think they're a storyline for this week, just because like one, watching overs hit is fun because there's a lot of points, but two, um, I don't know, they haven't turned a corner in their record, but it feels like they almost turned a corner so far this year. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean their offense is like is statistically, I think, the best offense in the NFL. I'm looking it up right now, and they're not fully healthy because they still have a number one draft pick that's probably coming back after the bye, who decimated the national championship defense last year in college.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, they have another ace in the hole that they haven't even
Thrown onto the field, basically.
yeah, exactly. Yet they're yes, and I was right. They're averaging. They are the highest averaging yards offense, and they are scoring the most points per game in the NFL. So they are the best offense in the NFL. Now the problem. So in that respect, yes, they have turned a corner, and I think that everybody expected when Jared Goff went to the Rams that he was going to stink for 2 years. They were going to draft his replacement. He would be jettisoned to be a backup, the Mitch Trubisky model, basically.
Yeah.
And then he would basically flame out. But he's a good quarterback. He really is. And more importantly for them, they have two great running backs, and they have an excellent offensive line that
Mm-hmm.
they've been able to keep healthy for the past 2 years, and that has really helped the development. And then they're buying into what Dan Campbell's selling. The problem is they're not buying into what Aaron Glenn is selling, because they can't play defense.
Yeah,
They
they have the most points scored in the NFL. They've also let up the
given
most
up the most
points.
points. Yes,
Yeah,
um,
by
by a touchdown.
no, but they have allowed 141 points. The closest team next to them is the Seahawks, who have let up 115.
No, I know. On a points per game basis, they're
Oh
giving
yeah.
up 35 points per game. Seattle's giving up 28. Now round up 29, but it's more fun for my point if it's a full touchdown. So yeah, the problem is that they can't play defense. So in that respect, yes, they have turned a corner. I have an. We'll get to it later. I have an eerie feeling about this week, but the Lions are fun, and I hope they continue to be fun.
Okay. We got two more things to talk about. One is what are they? We'll do that last. We'll just kind of cover the key injuries. So obviously, if you were watching Thursday Night Football, after a week previous when Tua Tagovailoa is believed to have been concussed, there's a lot of obviously hot takes on Twitter. But the NFLPA and I think the NFL fired a non-affiliated physician, whatever, who diagnosed him with not having a
The
concussion.
unaffiliated neuro consultant.
Yeah, in that Sunday game, they're now looking to change the protocols, but basically Tua gets thrown to the ground on a very, you know, very legal but obviously powerful play, and what is very concussed. Hands locking up kind of thing, something very indicative of serious head trauma. And then, credit to Amazon, they were like, "Hey, do you want to see this 8 fucking times? 'Cause you're going to," and they would
Yeah,
play it in slow motion over and over instead of just, I don't know. If there was ever a time to cut it to a Yankees game during the football season, maybe that would have been it. Like, I I'm still fucking mad about that shit. All right. Anyway, so obviously Tua out for at least this week. I believe he's been ruled out. I don't know how long the concussion protocol is. I don't know what his timeline looks like. Obviously, very severe head trauma. We're all hoping he does well, but he will be out for I believe will be the foreseeable future. I think they'll be very delicate with how fast they bring him back. Daniel Jones out at least this previous week with concussion protocol. Remains to be seen if he'll come back this week. and I know this is mostly key injuries from quarterbacks, but Dak Prescott, uh, they're saying he still can't grip the ball fully, so they don't expect him back this week. I would. It sounds like they would be surprised if he's back for the Eagles next week. I don't know that they're going to rush Dak back just to put him in contention with one of the best teams in the NFL that's also in your division when you get another chance to play him down the road. And presumably, if you know, continue to do well within your division, like there's no need to, you don't need to go perfect in your division usually to come out on top. So I would be surprised if they rush Dak back. But those are the kind of key injuries. I don't know if you had any others to add. That's more of just an info thing for the listeners.
No, I think or Javonte Williams is a big loss for Denver because
Yeah.
he does a lot of things for that offense and really sad injury, UNC grad. So feel that one. And
There's
then
There's one other I did forget, although he played JJ Watt having an arrhythmic heartbeat and then
yeah,
playing.
he was in AFib, which is a big deal.
I
For
mean, that's insane. Presumably, very much cleared by medical personnel in a
Yeah,
very serious
but
situation.
for anybody who's never had a relative that's dealt with that, that's not a joke. So yeah,
I mean,
we,
credit to him. He got very emotional at a press conference about how he loves the game and how it was basically scary, which I can only fucking imagine.
yeah.
But hopefully, all these guys come back soon and very healthy. I don't know if you were. Did you have another one to add to that?
The only other one I had was Cordero Patterson, injured and will kind of negatively impact something that's going on in Atlanta, whatever that is. But
Which beautiful
perfect
transition.
segue.
Okay, so what are they? Mike and I each have a team here who we're just so confused about. You go first, Mike. So what are they? The Atlanta Falcons.
I don't know. That's my problem. Is I don't know what this team is. They're they're not good,
No.
but they're better than bad. So it's mind. But I every week I show up here and I think that their offense is finally going to absolutely sputter against the defense that they're playing, and a pretty good one this past week in the Browns,
Yep.
and they were in control of that game start to finish. And that's a position that the Browns can't really afford to play from behind right now because they don't have the guy that they paid a lot of money to make everyone forget about his
Crimes.
very very bad past. But they they just keep finding ways to win games and to really stay competitive in games. And now when you look at their schedule and the way that really not the way that they've played this season more so, um, they are 2-2. They have beaten. Sorry, I was pulling it up. They beat the Jaguars pretty convincingly.
Yeah,
Uh,
who we at?
oh, sorry, that was
That was
preseason. I apologize.
preseason.
They beat the Seahawks on the road, which they're not good, but and they beat the Browns the past 2 weeks. Got themselves back to 2-2 after a start, but you look at it now, they should have beaten the Saints. Like we could
Yep.
have been sitting here saying
The
that the
Falcons are
Falcons are
three and 1,
3-1, similar to
giving the Rams a run for their money and covering as well.
yeah, like the Giants and the Bears. If the Bears had beaten the Giants, we're sitting here and wondering how is this team 3-1, but better, but they're like the Giants are 3-1, the Falcons are 2-2. The Falcons are a much better team than the Giants, but I don't believe in the Falcons either. So I don't understand how we even got in this room. But
Right.
it's like it's so few games, yet I don't believe that the Falcons are good, but they're performing competently, and I think that's a similar dynamic with the Giants.
Hmm.
But somehow the Falcons have been more impressive in the way that they look functional than the Giants have, which is it's so hard to reconcile in my brain because the Giants have a better record. The Giants have looked very competent. They've beaten competent teams in the Titans, or they beat a competent team. Uh, in the Titans, but they beat the Bears, and who was their other win? It was somebody else not good. The Panthers. The Giants beat the Panthers. So they've beaten two very bad teams. So I look at those two wins for the Giants and I say, that's why I don't believe in them right there. But I look at the Falcons and I say, okay, their two wins are against the Seahawks, who stink, who affirmatively stink, and the Browns, who are just missing the guy that they're paying to not stink. And so they're 2-2. They lost to the Rams, which is an excusable loss, and they lost week one to the Saints, which is not really an excusable loss, but they'd be 3-1. So, like, there's nothing overwhelming about the Seahawks wins in the same way that there's nothing overwhelming about the Giants wins, but I somehow believe in the Falcons way more than I believe in the Giants. And if you're as confused as I am about all of the things that I've just said in the past 5 minutes, that's why I'm saying what I'm saying, is because I have no idea what this team is, because it's so confusing when you start going down this rabbit hole of who they've beaten and how they've performed, and they look way better than their record says they are, or even the results say they are, but I still don't believe that they're any good. So it's I don't know.
Yeah, much like your take with the Falcons. I'm the same way with the 49ers. The 49ers have lost to the Bears and Broncos, putting up no more than 10 points in both of those games. And then they have gone on to beat the Seahawks, who, Seahawks are not good, just like the Falcons did. And then they destroyed the Rams in primetime yesterday. I mean, that was a decisive victory where the 49ers came out and absolutely destroyed the Rams in what you think would be at least a more evenly matched game, and it wasn't. It just never was. So I'm very confused. I don't. I'm not a believer in Garoppolo. It wouldn't shock me if the 49ers were the seventh seed at all either. But this team is very hell bent on either putting up a stinker of a stinker or winning by 2 to 3 points, and that's very confusing to me because you'd think that they were able to get it together a little better, and kind of put together a strong presence. We have, and if you look at their schedule again, harping on the schedule kind of thing, but they don't have the easiest schedule going forward. Their opponents include the Chiefs, the Rams again, the Chargers, Cardinals, Dolphins, Bucks, Cardinals again, and Raiders. So like not an easy, couple weeks going down the season, but it wouldn't shock me if they're over 500 either. Um, so it's just very confusing. I know Trey Lance out for the season, so Garoppolo's kind of taking the reins. Interestingly enough, mid-October, October 16th, we will have our Who Are They Bowl. The 49ers head the Falcons at noon. So that should be a fun game to hopefully determine who the hell each of these teams are. But yeah, the 49ers are very confusing to me, and the Falcons are too. I just haven't paid as much attention to the Falcons because they weren't supposed to be good, if that makes sense. But the 49ers were supposed to be in contention this year, and
Yeah.
they are just 2-2, losing to the Broncos, who I think stink, and the Bears, who I said was the 32nd ranked team in my personal opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, that's not good. That's not good. So I'm interested to see how the 49ers kind of play out through the middle of the season, see where they get to. All right. Well, let's roll on to the preview for this week. Not the greatest of slates, but it's football, and we love it. So we'll do what we always do. We'll roll down through the Thursday night, and we'll throw in the London game. It's a preview of my pick. And then we'll roll into the 1 p.m. games, the 4 p.m. kickoff games, and then our remaining primetime games. So, first up on the slate, this game is, I'm going to watch it, but this game's going to stink. Colts at Broncos. Colts are plus 3.5 or plus 3, depending on what your book has right now. I mean, isn't this the battle of like quarterbacks that should be a lot better than they actually are this season? like
This
Matt
game
Ryan.
sucks.
Yeah, this is like I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but this might be the worst. I can't wait to eat crow on this take, but this might be the worst game of the season.
I think I'm gonna add the under here.
That's my pick. I have under 43. I these two teams. It's going to be like this is like a fade what you want pick, right? You want this to be a shootout between two well known quarterbacks, and this will be like putting shards of glass in your eyes.
I don't
But you're
even
gonna
know that
want
I want that with these two guys. I like it. There's nothing attractive about this matchup whatsoever. Is there a world where Indianapolis moves the ball against this Denver defense? No, to me, like not really. I don't see how they like. Sertan is going to shadow Pittman the entire game. I don't know who else Indianapolis is throwing the ball to. Denver plays good enough defense unless Jonathan Taylor goes completely off. They're going to be all
Mhm.
over Matt Ryan. He's going to get body slammed again like he did in what was that?
Yeah, Matt. It's going to be a tough day for Matt Ryan, I think.
I don't see a world where this game goes well for the Colts, and they've got to be near the bottom of the offensive categories. They're bottom half in yards per game. And as far as points per game go, they are the worst team in the NFL on a
The
points per game
Colts?
basis.
Oh, jeez. No, they can't be.
They are.
That's the Lions.
No, the worst offensive
Oh,
points per game
oh,
team in the
offensive,
NFL
offensive.
is the
Sorry.
Indianapolis Colts. The second is the Chicago Bears, who, by the way, I saw this. The Bears are averaging less than 100 yards passing a game.
That is
Averaging.
hard to do.
Yeah.
I said,
Um,
dude, I said they're probably the worst team in the NFL, despite being 2-1.
I
I
think
will
that distinction
die on that
belongs.
hill.
I think that distinction belongs to the Carolina Panthers, but um, I the third gets to the third worst team points per game basis is
Hmm. Titans?
it's the Denver Broncos.
Oh,
So I don't know how we got
probably
to
should have
this.
figured that one out.
I don't know how this total is at 43 when both of these teams combined are averaging 30.
Yeah, and the unders in primetime games
And
are
the unders are killing me.
especially in Thursday night games. So yeah,
This is on the card for me now.
it
I am
is.
putting Denver Indy under 43 on the card. We just talked ourselves into it. Public or sorry, the heavy bettors are uh, clocking in at 90% on the under. Public tickets are 74% on the under. This is going to be a disgusting game. Bet the under. That's the play in Virginia, not in North Carolina.
Speaking of disgusting games, Sunday morning you'll have another London game. 9:30 a.m. kickoff. Giants versus Packers. Not really at, but Packers are considered to be the home team. Packers are favored by 8. I originally had the under on here. I took it off. I just there's a world in which both these teams score. The Giants, obviously, we don't know the QB situation. I don't think Daniel Jones has been explicitly ruled out for this upcoming game. I think he's questionable.
Do you
But
want right now? 91% of the cash is on the under, while the public is 57% on the over.
wow, I might have to add the under. That'll be a game time decision depending on how this line
Yeah,
moves.
I'm moving the under to May at it, and I'm taking. I originally had the over on my card, but I'm gonna take that off.
But I don't have anything specific for this other than Daniel Jones will be out. But I also don't trust the Packers in a bounce back like against the spread in this case.
Yeah,
Um,
because I think the problem here is if even if Daniel Jones is in, there's a world where the Giants score less than 10 points, and even
mhm.
if Denver or Green Bay may walk through this game and win it 28-10, and you still don't hit the number. So I I don't really know what's going to happen with as far as the Packers. Do you feel like this is a really good spot for them to get right against a team that is ahead of them in the standings, but is not better than them.
Yeah, but
But we keep saying
also the Packers also have a tendency to do this where you're like, okay, the Packers had a either a loss or a really bad win in overtime, like they just did. And you're like, this is the bounce back week against the spread Packers, and then the Packers come out and they look like shit. It's like they
yeah,
have a hangover from their previous performance. So I mean, obviously, I'll be watching this game. It'll be Aaron Rodgers on my television, but this is a it is the first time we've sent two teams without losing records to London, which is very funny. Both teams are over 500. Um, but I don't think this will be a very good game. Obviously, both NFC teams, but I don't really think there's much in the cards here. Anyway, moving on. Okay, so we got a couple games in the 1 p.m. slate. Pretty large 1 p.m. slate. Do any teams have a bye week this week?
no, I think they
No, that's
start.
next week maybe. Week 6.
I'm gonna find out. You keep talking. I'll
Okay.
find it.
So these are the following matchups at the 1 p.m. slate for National Football League Week 5. Lions at Patriots.
They start
Excuse
next
me.
week. Week
Lions
6.
are +3. I thought they did. Lions are +3. Steelers at Bills. Steelers are +14. Dolphins at Jets. Dolphins are -3.5. Falcons at Bucks. Bucks are -8.5. Seahawks at Saints. Seahawks are +6. Texans at Jags. Jags are -7. Bears at Vikings. Bears are +7. Chargers at Browns. Chargers are -3. And that's your 1 p.m. slate. Nothing. Bears Vikings technically a rivalry, but inner division. Um, but these none of these matchups really stick out as like sound the alarm. These are going to be great matches. Obviously, Dolphins and Jets, same thing. Falcons Bucks, but these I I like some of these picks, but I don't like some of these games. But Mike, why don't you run us through your card for the 1 p.m. slate?
Yeah, it's a lot of meh in this window, which hopefully we get some fun towards the end. But I have let's see, I've got one, two plays and two may ads, or three may ads. Sorry. Um, I'm going to start with
How'd you go
Jacksonville.
last week, by the way?
Oh yeah, last week your boy went 6-1. Ended up adding two Thursday night plays, Cincinnati and the under, which both hit. Played the whole card as I said on here, but I added the Jets Pittsburgh over 40.5, which I admitted to myself I had mental problems for doing, but that hit. Um, and then the only loss last week was Rams +2.5. Just a clunker on Monday night to roll into this week. So hopefully we don't flush it all down the drain this week, but here it goes. Jacksonville, Houston. I like the under here, 44.5. I This game is in Jacksonville. There's going to be a little bit of an emotional bump for Jacksonville coming off the hurricane. Right now, public tickets on the over at 52%, but the sharps are on the under at an 81% clip. And I think that's because Jacksonville's defense is pretty competent. The Texans are bad, but Jacksonville is not necessarily a team that has the capability to really blow out a team. So I think when you add all that up, even against the Chargers, they won 37-10. That gets you to 47. I don't think that they're going to do that again. I think this is more of a 31-10 range sort of game. But I like it to stay under the number. Honestly, I'm floating on back and forth on the line because I think Houston may make this game competitive. So Jacksonville -7 I have as a may add. But the overall feeling I get here is that Jacksonville wins this game pretty convincingly, but it's fairly low scoring, and their defense sort of dominates this game. So that's my thoughts on Jacksonville and Houston. I like Tennessee -2.5 against your Commanders. Sorry, I think the Commanders are really, really, really awful.
No, I think I
And
agree.
them and the Panthers are in a dead heat for the most dysfunction this year. I would say the Commanders normally hold that title just by proxy of
Virtue
being
of owner.
yeah, just being the Commanders. Um, but Tennessee seems to have found a little bit of a rhythm. I think 2.5's a little bit too low of a line. Washington is not necessarily a home field advantage sort of place.
I
Uh,
would say they're the opposite of that, but yes.
Philly showed us that. So
Yep.
I like, yeah, I like Tennessee in that spot. And then my other two May ads in this window: Atlanta plus 8.5. This is the biggest public sharp split on the board for the NFL this entire week. Public tickets are 67% on the Bucks. Sharp tickets are 75% on the Falcons. Make it make sense. This comes back to my point. I don't know what the Falcons are, but Vegas seems to think that Atlanta is capable of keeping this within a score. I tend to agree, but I'm going to hold off until I think probably I see how plays on Thursday night go and some of the college games, and then I may
Hmm.
roll into the weekend. My other one here is Detroit, New England over 45.5. We talked about the Detroit overs. My only concern here, and this is not, these are two different offenses, defenses, teams, states, whatever. But I have flashbacks in my mind of Bill Belichick shutting down a Jared Goff led offense in the Super Bowl in a game that I was certain Jared Goff was going to be able to throw around Bill Belichick's defense. And there's part of me that says if I take this over, Jared Goff's going to show up and look like the same guy he was in that Super Bowl. The Lions score 13 points and lose this game 15-13.
Yep.
So I'm hesitant to take it because I don't know that these overs can keep hitting the way that they are, and the reason I give myself is that the line that reason specifically is that Bill Belichick may have Jared Goff's number, probably not, but may.
That's I don't dislike that take. So last week, so for my 1 p.m. slate, last week I went 9-4, so +6 units for the picks I get out on the show. I added one and it almost hit. It was a 3-team money line parlay, all of underdogs. The Ravens ruined that for me, so thanks Ravens. That would have been +2,000. But rolling into this week, 1 p.m. games. I'm gonna ride with you on the Lions and Pats over, and then the Falcons +8.5. Something just seems off about the Bucks, and I want them to prove to me that they are a better team than they are. And until then, anybody laying over a touchdown against them, I'm going to take the touchdown. I also have Chargers -3 against the Browns. I don't think the Browns are a very good team without Deshaun. I think they have shown that they are pretty vulnerable in certain places. And I think they have not performed well this year, especially when you look at the losses they've had. So I think the Chargers can go in and kind of put them away. We'll see if I'm right. Um, and then the other one I have is Bills first half -6.5. So the only time that the Bills have been favored against the spread and more than a touchdown and a half, so 10 points, they have gone like 9-1 against the spread. The only time they lost was to the Jags when they lost 6-9 last year. They've also covered all of their spreads, first half spreads. Similarly, the Steelers are a good team. Given them, well, they're not a good team. I lied. They're a bad team this year, but they've historically never been in a spot where they're 14-point dogs, and I don't like that to finish up the game. However, I think the Bills can come out firing. And I don't think you're ever out with the Bills -14, but I like first half -6.5 because if the Bills are up, the Bills could be up 20 points, and if the Steelers get a last minute backdoor touchdown, you're then not in the number. So I like -6.5 or -6 first half. And then I have a parlay. I'm going to parlay the Dolphins and the Jags, kind of like on an emotional level. Obviously the hurricane that hit pretty horrible. So usually teams, especially favorite teams, it seems like teams who are like going through adversity both on and off the field, um, usually show out, like historically speaking. So I'm going to parlay those two and just hope that all the Florida teams. Um, I mean, the Bucks probably will win. Whether they keep it inside the number or not is a different story. But I think the Dolphins can handle the Jets pretty handedly, with or without Tua. And I definitely don't hate the way the Jaguars have played against good teams. So I think playing against the Texans as a 7-point favorite is not going to be too difficult for Trevor Lawrence. So those are my picks for the 1 p.m. slate.
I think the Dolphins Jets under is an interesting ad too, just because you
Mhm.
figure the way to victory for the Dolphins there is to dominate the Jets offense, which um, 44 and a half is the total right now. Um, and that feels like a 20, like I said, 20, could even be like a 21-10 game where the Jets offense just looks dysfunctional. I hope not, because I think Zach Wilson has some momentum he could build upon from last week, especially that last drive. But I think you could see like a even 17-10 Dolphins just dominating defensive performance because they have two good corners and they have a defense that can do that. So that's a astute observation by you on the Dolphins.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. So 4 p.m. slate. So we have 4:05 kickoff. 49ers at Panthers. Then we go rolling into Cowboys at Rams, where they are 4.5 point underdogs for the Cowboys, and then Eagles at Cardinals, where the Cardinals are 5.5 point underdogs. Um, Mike, you got anything for these games? Any bets?
I do. I have. I think plays on all. Is it all of these games?
Oh wow. Okay, go on.
No, I don't. Not on. I like the Cowboys, but I'm not going to take them. The two plays I do have: San Francisco -6.5. I just said I think Carolina is the worst team in the might be the worst team in the NFL because I've at least seen Washington put together a competent offensive performance. I haven't seen Carolina do it. I think New Orleans offense. God, the fact that we have to watch another one of those games. They should just
Mm-hmm.
line both of those teams up like colonial armies and just let them shoot each other with muskets. That
Steady boys.
would be much more entertaining than watching both of those offenses try to play offense. I
Yeah,
actually
that is rough.
or just let the offenses play each other the whole game. They never get to stop. So it's just they have to play special teams too. Like that would be more fun than watching both of these offenses. Um,
Run
so
the clock the whole game.
either way, so yeah, San Francisco -6.5. I think they win by a touchdown. I don't care. I don't care that this game is at Carolina. I think San Francisco just runs the ball. I think they eventually wear out Carolina's defense, and they're San Francisco. I think has one of the best defenses in the NFL statistically, and just based on the eyeball test. And uh, the Carolina offense is terrible. So take San Francisco -6.5. I like Philly -5.5 against Arizona. I think this is a come to earth moment for Arizona. They started building momentum. They beat Carolina. They beat the Raiders the week before. So they started generating momentum. I think this is the week where Arizona runs back into another buzzsaw, and we see that they're just multiple pieces away from contending for anything. I like Philly here -5.5. I think they win by at least a touchdown. Then my last play in this window. Sorry, I just want to make sure it is in this window. Um, Oh, I missed it in the 1 o'clock slate. Sorry, but I thought it was a West Coast game. Seattle +5.5. I love Seattle in this spot. New Orleans sucks. They suck. Um,
Their offense is not good, and asking them to cover any kind of points assumes that the defense will score a
yeah,
touchdown.
DK versus a fresh Marshawn Lattimore should be fun. But ultimately, I think Seattle proved they can play offense, and I think their defense is going to play well enough against this New Orleans offense to win. I like them +5.5 and may sprinkle the money line there.
Okay, I got one play in the 4 o'clock slate. So I said I don't know what the 49ers are. I'm not touching any games that they're in because they could lay an egg, and I don't want to be on the opposite side of that, having said that I don't know what they are. Cowboys at Rams. Look, I think the
Real
Cowboys are a
quick
good team.
to answer my
Mhm.
own question, San Francisco tied for the best yards per game defense and the best scoring defense in the NFL. So
Interesting. Okay, so Baker Mayfield may be in trouble. Maybe the 49ers are really just those guys,
yeah,
where they're like smash mouth defense.
defense is unbelievable. It's whether or not Jimmy G can show up.
I might trail you on that just to have another bet in this window. I'm not touching Cowboys at Rams either, just because eventually it feels like the Cooper Rush train has to come to a halt, and the Rams in a significantly underperforming Monday night appearance might be the time when that happens, especially at home in a get right game. I also similarly think eventually the train has to come off the rails slightly for the Eagles. Obviously, they're a very good team. I don't mean that. I mean they have to have a loss somewhere in the schedule. I think they're more than a two-loss team in a 17 game week or 17 game season. So I'm going to take the Cardinals um, plus 5.5 here. It just I might tease the Cardinals with the over, but it it seems like 6 points is a lot for what you could consider the Cardinals to be. I fully accept that this could very well be a game where they just get destroyed. But 6 points is a lot in a professional football league where, Kyler Murray is still a very good quarterback. Whether or not they can piece together what they need to do to get points on the board against the Eagles obviously remains to be seen this week, but I will take the points with the Cardinals. So we are on opposite ends of that. All right, final two games of the week. Bengals at Ravens, Sunday night. Very exciting. And then Monday night, Raiders at Chiefs. Bengals are right now 3-point underdogs, and the Raiders are 7.5-point underdogs. Michael, primetime picks.
I only have one. It's a May ad. Kansas City -7. We just said that they might be going back to the AFC Championship game. I think the Raiders feel relieved that they finally got a win. They walk an Arrowhead and run into the buzzsaw that is Patrick Mahomes. I think they've got a lot of things they need to work out, especially on offense. I like Kansas City there. They're not the. If we agree that the Raiders are not the Chargers, they're not the kind of team that's going to go in and actually compete with Kansas City in Arrowhead. Um, that makes me think that the Kansas City wins this game by 10 points. So I'll take Kansas City as a May ad. Depends on how the rest of the slate goes.
All right, I am taking something I shouldn't take. Bengals Ravens over 84. Oh, Jesus, 48 and
Over
a
84.
half.
It's a
Um,
big 12
they,
game.
both have good offenses. Both are not bad on defense, but certainly that's not their strength. Usually primetime games, you think meh, but I think this is Sunday night in Baltimore. I think both these teams wake up for this game, especially on offense. I think you see a Joe Burrow fuck you game with 3 passing touchdowns, and I think you see the same from the Ravens with Harbaugh kind of going balls to the wall to score as much as he can. Um, I I lean Cincy +3, but I have a pick, and I'll talk about it in a second for to include that. But I just like the points in this game. I think it's going to be an over game. I think it should be a fun one. I hope to God it's a fun one because we've had some questionable ones on Sunday night so far. And then depending on how this line moves, I see it's at Raiders +7 right now. If it moves up to +7.5 or +8, I might actually take the Raiders with the points. I do think the Chiefs are very good. I think the Raiders have been underperforming, but I think they're still a pretty good team, and I think Derek Carr um, can show up in critical games. Um, and I think on Sunday night, you think usually it's an under. So is 7.5 a lot? Doesn't always have to be the case, but sometimes it is. And I don't know that the Chiefs have always had the Raiders number, so I kind of lean Raiders to keep it within a touchdown. I also have one last pick. I'm going to start doing this every week. I'm going to do an underdog money line parlay. So I'm going to pick 3 teams that I think could win. Last week, I had the Ravens. I had Kansas City, who was an underdog by 1 point, and I had I'm going to butcher. The Titans. So the Titans won. Kansas City won. Unfortunately, Baltimore blew that huge lead. That was like plus 2,000. So this is a plus 1,700 money line parlay. It's Lions money line. Um, I think the Lions are due 3 points against a Patriots team that, granted, is coached by Bill Belichick, but maybe doesn't have their starting quarterback behind them. I think the Lions can pull out a win. Um, Seahawks money line. I think the Saints are bad. Um, I got that they have a good defense. This just seems like one of those fluke games where maybe the Saints realize they're not as good as they think. Um, and granted, it's like plus 250, but I'm going to throw it in the parlay and hope it hits. And then my last one. So if both of those hit, you'll be able to hedge with Bengals money line pick. All three rounding out to plus 1,700 or 1,720 or whatever it is, but it should be over 1,700. So that one unit wins 17. Not a bad throw some sprinkle on it and see if it hits. If you want to get some exciting stuff. So those are my picks for this week. Michael, do you have anything to add for our viewers?
Nope. Go football.
Go football. All right, that's been Stupid versus the Spread. NFL Week 5. Like and subscribe. Remember, we put out a college football show every week, once a week, and we put out an NFL show once a week, every week before the first games of the week. Like and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good day.